Thank you for tuning in to Hard News TV. I'm your host, Terry Lynn, and this is the channel where truth is like poetry, and sometimes people just can't handle it. Today is September 5th, 2016, and I have a story that I just could not believe when I found it. This is from June 27th out of the Washington Times, and then I went and found the story for June 27th out of Newsmax. It says, Judge Richard Posner, no value in studying the U.S. Constitution. Okay, and watch what he says. Federal judge, Constitution does not speak to today. Some of the other headlines that I saw was federal judge says no bother studying the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is dead. So I just want to tell y'all that we are watching the systematic destruction of the United States of America when we have federal judges saying don't study the Constitution because it's dead. So let's finish getting these stories, and then we're going to get into the Constitution. Judge Richard Posner, speaking at Harvard University, speaking of to the elitists of the elitists, our future world leaders, national leaders, he's telling them, don't waste your time studying the Constitution. Seventh Circuit Judge Richard Posner sees, quote, absolutely no value in studying the U.S. Constitution because, quote, 18th century guys couldn't have possibly foreseen the culture and technology of today. But their morality and their ideologies was safe for our country and framing our country, and it made our country different from any other country. So let's get into this. In a recent op-ed for Slate, Judge Posner, a senior lecturer at the University of Chicago Law School, argued that the original Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the post-Civil War amendments do not speak to today. Do y'all know how dangerous that comment is? All of our freedoms, he is saying, is not applicable or important for today. He says, quote, I see absolutely no value to a judge of spending decades, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or even seconds studying the U.S. Constitution, the history of its enactment, its amendments, and its implementation across the centuries, well, just a little more than 2 centuries, and of course less for many of the amendments he wrote. 18th century guys, however smart they were, could not foresee the culture, technology, etc. of the 21st century. He added, let's not let the dead bury the living. Judge Posner, an outspoken opponent of the late Justice Antonin Scalia, also blasted absurd insults at the late conservative. I worry that law professors are too respectful of the U.S. Supreme Court, in part perhaps because they don't want to spoil the chances of their students to obtain support court clerkships, he wrote. I think the Supreme Court is at a nadir. The justices are too uniform in background, and I don't think there are any real stars among them. The last real star, Robert Jackson, died more than 60 years ago. I regard the posthumous for Scalia as absurd, especially those of Harvard Law School Dean Martha Mino and Justice Ellen Keegan. David Bernstein, who teaches at Antonin Scalia Law School, formerly George Mason University of Law, called Judges Posner's swipe at Scalia revolting. We all know Posner doesn't think highly, to say the least, of Justice Scalia. Judging from what Posner writes, its distaste seems to stem primarily from jealousy. Judge Posner thinks he would be a far better Supreme Court justice than Scalia was, and he resents that as a lower court judge, his writings, though highly influential in their own right, will never get the same attention and accolades as that of Justice Scalia's, Mr. Bernstein wrote. So the next article, a federal judge appointed by President Ronald Reagan. Oh, and Rush Limbaugh is going to give some thoughts and commentary on this. A federal judge appointed by President Ronald Reagan argued in a recent post that less attention should be paid to the U.S. Constitution since most of it is not relevant to the 21st century. I absolutely see no value to a judge of spending decades, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or even seconds studying the U.S. Constitution, the history of its enactment, its amendments, its implications, writes Seventh Circuit Judge Richard Posner. 18th century guys, however smart, could not foresee the culture, technology, etc. of the 21st century. Conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh on Monday called Posner's remarks just stunning. He says, quote, "It's only the official law of the land, and here's a Seventh Circuit judge saying it's worthless," Limbaugh said. "The amendments, its implementation, it's a waste of time even if you spend seconds studying it," Limbaugh said. The Constitution was the first document in history to limit the power of government and to give to its citizens, he noted. And that is why the opponents want to get rid of it, because it limits the government. It does not empower the government. It empowers its citizens. It empowers individuals, Limbaugh said. Limbaugh argued that the Constitution does indeed speak to modern society and has done so successfully. Posner, appointed by Reagan in 1981, illustrates, he says, quote, "how people can lose their grounding." Rush Limbaugh said, "This is the kind of thing, by the way, that's going to be latched onto. There's a whole movement on the left that agrees with this thinking." So, let's go over here. I pulled up the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay? And the United States Constitution, what does it really say? From Christian Law Association. Now, this was posted in 2005, but I want to read what it says. "The most important legal document in America is the United States Constitution. And when asked, more than 90% of the American people say the Constitution is important to them. Congress also recognized the ongoing importance of this document in 1956 when President Dwight Eisenhower was asked to proclaim September 17th to the 23rd of each year as the Constitution Week in remembrance of the signing of the U.S. Constitution. This year, in 2005, 216 years after the Constitution was adopted, many Americans will celebrate Constitution Week with the recitations of the preamble, with events reliving the signing of the Constitution, and even with a special ceremony of a public bell ringing in Philadelphia where this important document was drafted. But how many Americans have actually read the Constitution or know what this document actually says? After all, many law schools do not even require that law students even read the Constitution as part of their program of study. According to various surveys taken of the American people in recent years, 95% of them could not correctly answer basic questions around the Constitution. 84% of Americans confuse the Constitution with the Declaration of Independence and think it is the Constitution that says all men are created equal. That phrase is actually found in the Declaration of Independence, the document in which our founding fathers declared their independence from England and their dependence on God. 83% of Americans admit that they know only some or very little about the specifics of the Constitution. Even many American lawyers would have to admit their own ignorance of the doctrine if they were to be honest in their response. 62% of Americans cannot name all three branches of the federal government. They are the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. 24% of Americans cannot name a single right guaranteed by the First Amendment. That would be the freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, and freedom to assemble are the major ones that they should know. 20% of Americans do not know the Constitution prescribes that the President is also the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. Americans need to know the Constitution, it goes on to say. Despite this lack of knowledge about the Constitution, 84% of Americans believe that in order for our American Constitution form of government to work as intended, Americans are required to function as an active, informed citizenry. Citizenship Week this September is a good time for all Americans, especially Christians, to resolve to become both informed about the Constitution and active in ensuring its preservation. The following is a list of the key provisions in the various articles of the United States Constitution. If you learn these facts, you will instantly be more informed about our Constitution than the vast majority of Americans. Article 1 of the Constitution gives instructions for the organization and powers of a two-house legislature, the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Article 2 establishes the executive branch of government and vests executive power to the President of the United States. Article 3 provides for the judicial branch of government with one Supreme Court and such inferior courts as established by Congress. Article 4 provides for full faith and credit between the states, i.e. requiring that each state must recognize the laws of other states. Article 4 provides a formal means for amending the Constitution. To date, only 27 amendments have been acted by Congress and ratified by the states, while thousands of other proposed amendments have failed. Article 6 provides that the Constitution and the laws passed by Congress shall be the supreme law of the land, and in other words, these laws will control in the event the federal and state law conflict. This provision is referred to as the Supremacy Clause. Article 7 provides that ratification by 9 of the original 13 states was needed to establish the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, added immediately to the Constitution in 1791, includes the first 10 amendments to the Constitution and guarantees many of our basic rights considered fundamental to the American way of life. The Bill of Rights includes the following. Okay, now we just read that this Seventh Circuit Court judge says that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights needs to go away. So let's review the Bill of Rights, which this judge says you don't have. The First Amendment, freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petitions to redress grievances. Number 2, Amendment 2, freedom to bear arms. Amendment 3, freedom from quartering soldiers without consent. Amendment 4, freedom from reasonable searches and seizures. Amendment 5, freedom from self-incrimination. Amendment 6, right to a speedy trial, assistance of counsel, and various safeguards at trial. So do you want these things to go away? Amendment 7, right to a jury trial. Amendment 8, freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. So NDAA, indefinite detention, they can do whatever they want with no right to counsel, hold you indefinitely. Our world is changing. Let's keep going. Amendment 9, retention of non-enumerated rights by the people. Amendment 10, the right of the states and the people to reserve powers not delegated in the Constitution. Other key amendments that have become part of the Constitution include the abolition of slavery. Amendment 13, authority for the federal income tax. The right of women to vote, 2-term limits for president, lowering of the voting age, and delaying the effective date of congressional pay raises until after an election. Okay, I'm not going to get into the rest, but this does say the Constitution relied on the Bible. James Madison, who was the father of our Constitution, understood that men could not effectively govern themselves without a clear understanding of biblical doctrine of man's inherent sinfulness. As a result, he drafted the Constitution so that no one branch of government was given absolute control over the others, so that a rigorous system of checks and balances would protect its people from tyranny. The following provisions demonstrate this basic theological understanding. The president can veto any act passed by both houses of Congress, but Congress can override a presidential veto. The House representatives may instigate impeachment proceedings against the president, but the Senate has the sole power to try all impeachments. The Supreme Court can declare a legislative act to be unconstitutional. However, Congress has the power to determine the number of jurisdictions of federal courts within the limits of Article 3. The Electoral College, which is determined by the number of congressional representatives for each state, elects the president. The president is not elected by the popular vote of the people, thus preventing states with larger populations from having a greater voice in presidential elections than states that are more sparsely populated. The Constitution presumed a moral citizenry. So that's a very good article, but let's get on to the next part. Here's the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The Constitution of the United States of America is the supreme law of the United States, empowered with sovereign authority of the people by the framers and the consent of the legislatures of the states. It is the source of all government powers and also provides important limitations on the government that protect the fundamental rights of the United States citizens. Do y'all want to lose these rights? Do y'all want a UN Constitution? All the people that are clamoring, yeah, the Constitution is old. Do you know the dangers of what we can get if we lose the Constitution? Do you know the dictatorship that awaits us? The tyranny, the not being able to speak anything that you feel is right or wrong, being punished by the government for non-specified reasons. So I just wanted to bring this to y'all about the dangerous times that we are living in, and just to make y'all aware of it. And please stay awake, and please pay attention, and please stay tuned to my videos, because there's so much that I want to share with y'all. October 1st, the deadline to the UN giveaway of the United States giveaway of the internet transpires October 1st. That's just like 3.5 weeks away. So there's a lot I want to get out before then. Y'all stay tuned, and God bless. Bye-bye.